lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The clerk would do roll call for us, please.
Okay, roll call. Volkers is excused. Hughes?
Here.
Atwood?
Here.
Smith?
Here.
Jaffa?
Here.
Paquette?
Present.
Okay, we have a quorum.
Okay, do we have any citizen signed in?
There's no one signed in to speak.
Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak? You have 3 minutes. Okay, seeing none, we'll go on to approving the agenda and the consent agenda. I need a motion and a second.
Madam, I'll make a motion that we accept approval of the agenda and consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay, are there any changes or?
On the consent agenda are the minutes for our last meeting, and I would like to address that.
Okay, so take the approval of January 4th minutes off of the consent agenda? Is that right?
Let me get the right minutes. Yes, Jen, there's minutes for 2 meetings here. That'd be the most recent meeting.
All right. So, anybody else have changes or suggestions? Okay, seeing none, let's vote on the agenda and consent agenda minus the minutes of the January 4th meeting.
Okay, voting on the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda minus the January 4th minutes. Jaffa?
Yes.
Hughes?
Yes.
Atwood?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
And Paquette.
Yes.
Okay, your agenda and consent agenda have been approved, and on the consent agenda was the approval of the December 7th, 2022 PACAB meeting minutes.
Okay, moving onward, there are no proclamations and awards. The next thing up would be administration report.
Sure. So I have my report in the packet. I just wanted to add one thing, and this is really super cool, and I didn't put it in here because I wasn't sure it was going to happen, but it is happening this weekend. So Dive Alaska is coming down to Seward with about 50 divers and some volunteers and stuff. They're actually going to dive and clean around the I&T dock, clean the bottom out. They did it in several other locations in the South Central, so they're going to do Seward, and they teamed up with Alaska Waste for a dumpster, and they're going to have a picnic afterwards up there on the South Harbor, or the Northeast Harbor uplands, right there by the launch ramp. Anyways, it's a huge thing. I'm kind of curious to see what they're going to pull off the bottom after all these years. I know when they dredged years ago, they were pulling up skates of gear for those fishermen that didn't want to untangle all those knots, so they threw them overboard. So I'm kind of curious to see what they pull out, and it's going to be an interesting thing. I think it's a great thing.
And so are they doing this, they're doing this as a, is it a training for them?
Training exercise for them.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Yeah, what a great idea.
Yeah, it was great, and they reached out to us, and we said absolutely, and they're going to have spotters out for boats coming in and out, and they'll probably do security, and then our guys will be out and around to make sure that if there's any boats running around that they know we got divers in the water. They'll have all their markings and everything else.
And so if anything interesting comes up, what will happen with it?
What they pull out of the water?
Yeah.
Depending on what it is, it's going to go to the dump. But I'm just kind of curious, but I told my guys to keep going and checking and take pictures of the stuff they're pulling out, because it'd be good to throw in their reports later on. I mean, it's all going to be muddy and junk, you know, and stuff. I imagine it's mostly fishing stuff, but who knows?
Well, let's hope there aren't any real surprises, okay? All right, anything else?
That's all I had. I'd take any questions for my report if you had any.
What's the status on the resolution for the fire extinguisher situation?
So, they found another vendor, and they're supposed to be having them made and being sent up, fire extinguishers in life ring boxes. So we haven't received them yet, but I did request a 3-month extension on the grant, because it was grant late had to be done. So the state did grant us the 3-month extension, and we'll see where we're at. That's all we're waiting on is those 2 items, and we can finish that project. And on the northeast launch ramp, we're just waiting on the red line, and that one will be done.
I had a question I probably could ask outside the meeting, Norm, but I did have an opportunity to go fishing recently, and when we went to the walk to the dock, it was ice. And the charter company I went with, an experienced guy here in town, mentioned that there's no space between the boards. And I'm just wondering if there's a standard. The space between the boards would allow the water to flow off and not freeze on the boards.
Which float were you on?
If you go down by where the Mariners Memorial is,
Okay, so it's
and you go
MNOP?
down there and you walk down, down, and then go back, that whole dock. When we came back, there was 6 inches of snow, there was no problem.
Sure.
But when we went out, it was all ice, and this experienced captain mentioned that there's no grooves to let the water go off.
So that float, when they built them, they did tighten up, but because of the last float that company built, which was A, B, C, and D, if you go there, the gaps are really wide because the wood shrunk so much. So now they closed them up, and now they're not getting the air, so they're not shrinking. Those docks, once the sun hits them, they clear off ice really fast, but we do go down there and spread salt if it's icy.
Is there a standard that for that?
They were using just a 16 penny nail spacer, and
So normally you would put it like a deck.
correct.
Okay.
So they built the new launch or dock
Nope.
to compensate for the wood shrinking, but the wood hasn't shrunk.
Correct. It all depends, I guess, where the treatment was done. I mean, I've seen that wood, I mean, like if you go down and look at the old, ABC and B flow, that stuff is some big gaps there. But now you go over there and there's nothing. To me, it's different type of wood. I don't know where they got it from, but it's different type of wood. It's not the same.
But you're aware of the problem and you
Correct,
pretty
and
much
we,
monitor
like I
it.
said, we go down, as soon as it snows, we hit them with the snow blowers or plow, and then we do have a sander, but we don't we put salt on the docks. Concrete, we use a special salt, so if it is icy, we do salt them.
Well, this captain mentioned to me that it wasn't much of a problem because he was one of the few boats that went out.
He's the only one that goes out all winter long. I know exactly what you're talking about. That's all good, and I appreciate the heads up. We'll keep an eye on it.
Anything else for Norm? Okay.
All right.
Seeing none, let's move on to.
You want to Stevens next?
Stephen? Yeah.
Sure. Not a lot. I guess one thing, I'll apologize ahead of time. I've got a 1 o'clock meeting for a housing project in Forest Acres that I can't weasel my way out of, so I'll apologize to the board in advance for having to leave. There's a lot on the agenda today, and I don't think you guys are going to be done by 1 o'clock. So.
No, I'm pretty much thinking we're gonna go all the way to 2.
And then I wanted to talk to the board briefly. I spoke with the city manager yesterday regarding Chair Holmdahl's resignation from the board. And this is actually one area that I'm hoping we can.
Brandy.
Correct. That we can look at when we talk about Title II revisions, which is on your agenda. Code is silent on the process for accepting a resignation from a board member. And this is not unique to PACAB, that's also the case for Historic Pres and for planning and zoning as well. But the city manager's preference is that we bring a legislative item to council at their February 13th meeting for council to formally accept Brandy's resignation. And then I believe the clerk's office has already noticed the vacancy and is beginning the process of accepting applicants. There will be an item on your next meeting, whether it's March 1st or whether the board decides to conduct a special meeting before then, for you folks to appoint a new chair. I already have that legislation prepared, but I just wanted to check in and let you know that that's the intention, is to bring something to the council so that council is aware and that they are formally accepting the resignation and moving forward. So, and then anything other than that, I'll take any questions you may have.
I apologize for this, but I've been trying to figure out, where is exactly the public workshop project at? What physically?
So we had a meeting yesterday with Chugachamute. One of the big questions currently is to look at access, not just to the new proposed site, which is, I'd say it's just that portion of Fort Raymond that's just south of the power lines. So it's about 4.5 acres. See where the new clinic is going to be at?
Yeah.
So it's just that next piece of Fort Raymond that's north of that, between the new clinic site and then the electric easement.
So somewhere between the street that goes up to the school and the new clinic site?
So yeah, south of Sea Lion, west of Diamond.
Okay.
And then the project itself, I'd say we're gonna be at 35% design by the end of February, middle of March, probably. The access piece is kind of the thing that's holding up the work. We met with Chugachamute yesterday to kind of talk about improving access to that whole area, and trying to find a way to obtain direct highway access onto the Seward Highway for both Chugachamute and for Public Works to lessen that impact onto traffic flow on the Sea Lion. And then the design survey it's probably going to be finalized this week. There's a lot of ice out there right now. So the survey team from R&M Engineering kind of took a little longer than anticipated to finish up the design survey. So, and I can provide the board with a copy of the updated project schedule once I get it.
Yeah, sorry, the reason for my confusion was, I at one time I thought the city was pursuing that parcel of land that now has a security fence around it as a possible public works. And seeing that go up, I thought maybe you were already working on it there, so.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that parcel was on I'll say the short list that council looked at. I believe there was 4 parcels that were kind of deemed the finalists for consideration, and Fort Raymond ended up being the parcel that council selected. Thanks, Carl.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
While we're talking about Fort Raymond, I am aboard with the decision to put the public works shop out there. I think it's a great fit, but I have not really looked at with the build out of Chugachamute, and that's a sale of property, I believe, to them. And then the city, the public works department, the electrical department in the same vicinity. Is there an opportunity for any additional, is there still city space there? Undeveloped space?
There's about 2.5 acres just north. Okay, so it's the new clinic parcel, and then the public works parcel, and then there's a 120-foot utility easement in the middle for the power lines, and then there's about 2.5 acres between that power line easement and Sea Lion.
And is that currently a park?
It's
Campground.
unused.
Campground,
Yeah.
okay. So will it continue in the near term to be a campground?
That's not the campground portion. The Forest Acres campground is
Further north?
It's north, and it's just north of the bike park. It's that more like wedge-shaped parcel on the kind of northeast. I think we've got a good map.
There is campsites there.
But it's not.
No, I don't want to get too far afield with it, Stephen. I just, I think long-term thinking, having city land available in a they call it a compound or a
Complex.
campus.
Yeah.
Campus, yeah. I like it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
Anybody else have questions for Stephen? Okay, given that Stephen needs to leave by 1, I wonder how the board feels about moving our discussion item under other new business number 3 up and make it the next thing we talk about. Because it's going to take some time. If we started right now, we would have 45 minutes before he has to leave.
May I?
Yes, sure.
There's no reason we couldn't also continue this at the next meeting.
Yeah.
I would actually anticipate that, to really look at code in depth, there might be more time needed. So if the board wants to also add this as an item at the next meeting.
Or we could schedule a special meeting on our work session day.
Sure.
in 2 weeks. So what's the board's, give me your input. What do you want to do? That would give us more time. We wouldn't have such a crunch to
Yeah, I
get
think it's a
through
good
it.
idea, maybe just to schedule that special meeting on that
Okay.
item.
What do you think?
Madam Chair, I'd just soon wait for that agenda item to come up in turn, and I would probably support the motion you're talking about. And while we're talking about it, I would ask the chair to be willing to suspend the regular order of business and re-ask the public if they have any comments.
Oh, absolutely. I'm for that as well. Ben?
Yeah, I think we can stay on our agenda and then do the special meeting, sounds good.
Okay, all right. Dwayne?
I have no objection.
Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and do the railroad report, and then we'll loop back and open it up to citizens' comments.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Vice Chair. So I just got a couple of things. The report's in here. I would just add that there's mention here about the main line being opened because, we did have that slide event. Currently, we've got 57 rail cars being loaded in our yard and on our dock, and we'll have potentially 20 more cars tomorrow playing catch up with freight. So that's good. Everybody's busy and Longshore is working. I do mention the cruise ship schedule. It's already been amended a little bit. I think we're looking at about 90 ships now. I did want to mention that I know that board members provided comments to council recently, that evening meeting. I'm vice chair of the Stewart Bear Creek Flood Service Area Board, and I had a meeting conflict, so I wasn't able to attend that, but I did review the meeting. I just wanted to note that. And then additionally, I wanted to mention that the real estate department and facilities department that I work under for the railroad hired an assistant port manager, and Rhonda Craybill is here in the back of the room. And just to say hi, she has, I guess you could speak to the experience, but she's worked for the Alaska Marine Highway System and then also done other coastal tour related activities. And she's been here in Stewart for some number of years. And anyway, I'm happy to have her on board.
Would you like to say a few words? No?
Happy to be on board and
Welcome,
looking forward to the
welcome.
future Stewart here. Thank you.
That's all I have, thank you.
All right.
I-
Yes.
You guys did great up on the slide. It cost me a little bit of money. I bet on 2 days. It actually took 3. But that was pretty darn close. Quite a job. I'm curious if the railroad has any current problem. I'm going to say today that I'm going to be very concerned with wage levels for employees, both in the city and in the area. And I'm wondering if the railroad has had any employment difficulties.
The short answer would be the railroad faces the same challenges that other employers face right now. And I think that this is going to make itself more apparent as we get into bringing seasonal employees back on board for the summer. We have a certain number, and for here locally, that would be depot management during the summer months. So,
Do you find your wage?
Yeah.
Do you find your wage levels competitive?
yes.
The problems may be either just availability of manpower or housing or some other issue.
Both.
Okay.
Does the railroad supply any housing to employees?
So, in a manner of speaking, we do use local hotels for some numbers of employees who come from Anchorage down here to work, and then also we do maintain an employee campground, and so we're able to sometimes provide seasonal housing through that campground.
Has there ever been any thought about building something?
Well, there is thought about building something. I don't know about housing in particular. We have what we refer to as a section, which is essentially an office and a kitchen. In an ATCO, we have a shower house, which is also in an ATCO type structure. Those are aging and they probably need to be replaced. So there have been some conversations, but I don't have any kind of schedule for newer plans.
Yeah, you mentioned in your report this construction is going to start in the end of this year, 2023, for the planned improvements, the beginning phase. And we did hear some interesting information from from the people, our folks that visited Juneau about potential usage of the dock. Are you guys already cognizant on preparing for something like that? I mean, we're talking not just possibly a large freight company, but the ferry itself returning. Should have never left, but.
Yeah, right. I'm in agreement with you there. Yeah. So what the dock looks like, believe it or not, that's still taking shape. But certainly, the railroad is interested, very much so, in having a dock that serves multiple purposes. We don't, want to build a big church for Christmas and Easter. We want to have something that is going to serve the state year round. I can say that.
Yeah, I realize that you can't go in depth yet, or anything, so, but thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Dwayne? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. So sticking to the schedule as it is, the next thing up would be to discuss the Chamber of Commerce marketing plan. We have Pat, the Executive Director, here in the audience. Oh, no, wait, hang on. Before we do that, we're going to suspend the rules for a minute and allow you to speak citizen comments if you want.
Madam Chairperson and members of the board, I don't have anything specifically prepared today. I did come primarily to listen to the discussion about the proposed ordinance change. And I see that that's probably going to be continuing to a longer session, so I won't go into the topic here today. I do a little bit of concern that it seems to be morphing more back into a kind of the harbor port commission or the broader scope organization that I think has served the community pretty well. And so I would just point that out that I have some concerns about that. Of course, I have a long history with the whole thing, and I won't bore everybody with that. That's documented record if you want to go on the city resources and look back at its actions over the years regarding the Harbor Commission and its demise years ago, and how the trade board, as it was called, was formed and created, and all of the intervening years down to the present. But I will reserve my time for when you are actually in that discussion, and I welcome hearing what you have to say. I look forward to Stephen's comments and review the board on that. I'm grateful for your service always on all things topic. I'm grateful for the community and things that are ahead of us here. I think we have an exciting future ahead, always, but there's challenges, and those are what makes us all exciting to be involved with. Thank you.
Good, thank you, Darrell. Okay, we'll go back on the record. And now we'll have the discussion of the Chamber of Commerce marketing plan. Kat?
Great. I'm going to hand out some of our marketing materials that hopefully you've seen before, and some that you have not. Exciting. It's our hometown guide, and then our marine industry guide. And then we have our latest 2023 visitor guide. I only have 5 copies of this, so I do apologize. You're getting the last 5 in town, but we are getting a shipment in of the rest of them today. And then this is a selection of our Seward area things to do, places to stay. Giving each of you just one, so do note that there's other ones that have dining and lodging, and that's something that we hand out, or that we update every 2 weeks, all winter long, for those that are visiting town and may not have a set plan on what they want to do, but want to know what's open. So before we dig into those, I did want to go over a little bit about the marketing that I put in your packet. And you'll see in that first slide, it describes what is a Chamber of Commerce. We are a group of businesses that support the interest of its members. But we are a unique Chamber of Commerce in that we also hold the marketing contract with the City of Seward, acting as their destination marketing organization, or DMO, and visitor experience and economic development firm. So that has been funded since 1995 through a percentage of a 4% bed tax. And we're grateful that that relationship was reaffirmed in this recent budget cycle at a flat funding rate of $300,000 for FY23 and FY24. You'll look on that next page, kind of how we stack up against our other Alaska locations. We are the 5th largest visitor market in the state, behind Juneau, Ketchikan, Anchorage, and Skagway. So some very big cruise ship destinations, and then Anchorage. We fall just behind them, but we have DMO funding that is drastically less. So what I like to say when I look at that number is that we are a lean, mean marketing machine. We get a lot done with our marketing dollars to make sure that we stay in that top 5 destination, while also being prudent with the money that we have on hand. We also, so we outperform many other Alaskan communities that have significantly more marketing resources. And I owe that a lot to our team. We're a great team, and they're awesome to work with. You'll see below what the city marketing contract covers. And I think that's something that a lot of people can be a little murky upon, since the chamber does hold that contract. A lot of people think that that's the only funding source for the Seward Chamber of Commerce, but our budget is about $750,000, and the other aspects cover the Mount Marathon race, the Seward Silver Salmon Derby, and our membership. So while we do take pride in that city marketing contract, it isn't the totality of our budget. So there are things that are divided pretty evenly, so that if you see the Mount Marathon race, that's not funded by city marketing contract dollars. What is funded is Seward.com, those guides I handed out, the entirety of the visitor center and front desk and greeting area, the creation of our branding and design, our role as a information and data hub, trip and conference planning, all Visit Seward social media, small business development, community support, our event calendar, different trade shows, and our winter weekends. And that's just a little bit of an overview. We also fund 2 full-time staff members, including our visitor center and events coordinator and our communications coordinator. Membership and executive director positions are not funded through that contract. And then we have 6 part-time staff in the summer that work at the visitor center, the cruise ship terminal, and the derby booth. So all summer long, we have representatives in each of those locations to answer any questions, comments, or concerns that visitors may have as they come in. And collectively, they cover about 3 ships a day. And you'll see some other fun information down there of the small random things that we do and cover. And then on the next couple pages, there's a screenshot of our website, Seward.com. I hope that you've all had a chance to peruse it, check it out. If not, it's always a fun place to go explore and learn something new about Seward. Some cool additions that we've had on there to help benefit the Seward area and visitors is our event calendar. For years, we heard as an organization that Seward was lacking in that, and that everything's on Facebook, so our staff works diligently going through Facebook and taking things off and putting in our calendar for those who may not have access to that site as well. But I do always have to say, if you have an event coming up, feel free to enter it onto our calendar on your own. We'll approve it and it'll be up there. You can then see on the sewer.com member views page, we have about 15,000 page views every week. And over the lifetime of our website, we've had nearly 200,000 member views, meaning that 200,000 people have clicked on different pages beyond our homepage and things like that. But one of my favorite things is that green box there, the session duration. And that's 2.5 minutes, which means every time somebody goes to a page on our website, they spend 2.5 minutes on that page. And that's not normally how people surf the web. If you think of yourself scrolling or on the internet, you click around, you're like, oh, this doesn't have any information, I'm moving on to the next one, until you find that prime source of informative web page, and you stay on that and learn more. We are that informative web page. People spend a lot of time on our website exploring, learning, and engaging with Seward. And that number is probably what I'm most proud of our website. And then we have some other projects that we work on. We have our social media with over 20,000 followers on Instagram and 150,000 on Facebook. We do some printed ad campaigns and different maps throughout Alaska so that people, when they pick up a map of the whole state, realize that we're the place they have to go. And then we do ad dives to different markets throughout the country. So as a resident of Seward, you probably don't see any of these because we are not targeting you. We can use the crazy world of information and data scraping to specifically target somebody in Washington State who has Googled the word glacier in the past year, and we can provide an ad to them. So that's kind of how we do that. So if you're ever saying, I haven't seen any ads for Seward in a while, it's because we're not targeting you. My dad used to call me all the time and say, I saw the ad for Seward today on my YouTube channel. And I'm like, that's because you Google Seward every week just to see what I'm up to. Then some marketing projects that we've also kind of undertaken is wedding and conferences. We've been seeing Seward grow more and more as a wedding destination, whether for larger events or elopements. And something that we constantly get asked for at the visitor center is, where do I get these vendors? Who can do my hair? Where can I rent chairs? So we've created a landing page for that and a specific page in our visitor guide for those planning destination weddings so that all of those answers are as collected as possible. And then kind of reaching out to the public and member businesses and saying, hey, you have all these chairs that you only use once a week. Why don't you think about renting them out? Or hey, you're a food seller. You're a restaurant in town, have you ever thought about doing catering? So kind of poking and prodding at people so that we do have more options there. And then we've also expanded on our marine industry. I get to spend a week down in Seattle with Norm and Dwayne, and that's always fun at the Pacific Marine Expo. But in addition to that, you'll see that we do have the marine guide and have added a marine landing page to our website. And that's something that was very underutilized in our marketing campaigns in the past is, and we kind of overlooked that whole awesome sector of our community, and we're really excited about bringing that forward. We also do asset management. If you've ever seen a visitor to Seward, they're always standing around with their cameras taking photos, and we use our marketing contracts to fund the purchase of an asset management system, which aggregates all of the images that are posted in Seward from social media into one spot so that we can go through and see everything that somebody's posting. If they're having a good time, we'll know. If they're having a bad time, we'll know. And then we're able to ask them if we can use their photos, which is a really cool tool for us to continue marketing our community so strongly. And then we also do winter weekends and the Seward branding. So that's a fun thing. We're able to work on the branding, which we have. I think it's really great. You can tell me in this meeting. If you don't, we can work on it. But we have been able to work on that branding and make it distinctly Seward, so that when you see that Seward, Alaska iconograph, you know and feel the same feelings that you do when you see a beautiful mountain in Seward. And we work with the city hand in hand on a lot of projects such as the legislative packet to share that branding so that all of the documents coming out as a representation of Seward have that same logo face, typeface, color scheme, all the way down to the CMYK numbers. And then there's some more. We have the visitation by the numbers, which is exciting. We still have a lot of in-state visitors, and they're continuing to rise. And then we work with economic development, which is always a really fun one. I get to come and talk to you guys every quarter, every month, and facilitate and organize economic events like Startup Week and Small Business Saturday, and attend industry shows like I mentioned, the Pacific Marine Expo. So that's kind of a little bit of an overview of what we do and kind of what we have planned. We're going to continue moving forward. No big projects on the docket this year. We're still honing and expanding our website. That was launched in 2021. So it's kind of due for a little bit of a gleaning update through and through, make sure all that information is accurate. So the staff and I are taking a week in the middle of February, just all website updating and making sure everything's correct on there. And then we'll be doing some ad buying campaigns coming up, because studies show people book their trips about 6 months in advance, so we're right at that July. We've been doing ad campaigns for early season and early June, and now we'll probably transition to July, August, and move on from there. But that's all I have. Do you guys have any comments, questions, concerns, thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I am a little bit, I think maybe your visitation numbers are a little skewed.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I say that is I happen to know from many of my associate vendors that the numbers were up more than they've ever been last year.
So last year's data for 2022, you're saying might be skewed down?
Yep.
And I can look into that, but I will say that a big missing portion of that is from cruise ship passengers. The cruise ships this year weren't in full force, according to our cruise ship terminal assistant, and I'm looking at Dwayne, wondering if maybe that's true. But we did see some still low numbers in that sector. So while the independent traveler numbers may still be really high, they didn't make up for that loss in cruise ship passenger numbers, because while they still, it seems like it's a lot harder because they need to be handheld throughout the whole trip, while cruise ship passengers have a very straightforward shot back to where they're heading home or where they're going.
So is it possible to create a separation? Because in 2021, again, the same thing applied.
Yeah, so
We were up compared to elsewhere or any other year, and then 2022, same thing happened.
So I can break the data down by places people visit when they are in Seward. So I created a sub-cluster, as it's called in the system, at the cruise ship terminal. So I can add anybody, I can remove anybody who also went to the cruise ship terminal from that data cluster and that data point. So if you're in the cruise ship terminal and downtown, I can say, don't count anybody who was also in the cruise ship terminal in downtown, and try to get a little bit of a better of an independent traveler number. But as with all data sets, it's not going to be 100% accurate, because I can't identify every single thing a person's doing. But I do agree that the general tone of switching to independent travelers has been strong, and definitely feels like more of a burden for those of us working in Seward on a day-to-day basis, because they are a little bit needier. You'll also see on this one page that the average trip length in 2021 was 4.187 days, which was up from 2.6 days in 2016. So people are coming to Seward and staying longer, which is part of what we had been working towards in the long run, of getting people to come down for more than a weekend, or getting them to come into Seward before or after their cruise ship. So I think that's all playing a part in that. But I definitely understand and agree with you. It feels like a lot more, but it might not necessarily be. I will triple check that.
Well, the reason I'm saying this is not that I believe that you're not collecting the appropriate stuff.
I would be making it higher if it was.
It's just, in tradition, 90% of the cruise ship traffic gets off the boat and leaves. And they really shouldn't be counted in, as far as I'm concerned, in visitations, because they're getting off and leaving.
But they're still bringing economic development into the city through the Alaska Railroad and through the cruise ship terminal, and putting a footprint on our community. And I wouldn't cut ourselves short by saying that. People could have left from Whittier. I myself went on a cruise out of Seward when I was 12, and we spent a whole week in Seward prior. So I think that taking that belief that 90% of them do hop up and go to Anchorage and leave is doing ourselves a disservice and doing those other visitors who do come into town a disservice as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Ben?
The asset, what do you call that, asset management?
It's also known as a DAM, Data Asset Manager.
Okay, that sounds extremely interesting for a techie.
Yeah.
So a couple of things kind of come to mind. One is how real-time and how specific are the pictures that are scraped?
So the scrapes every day at 11 p.m. So we'll have photos posted the next day. And I would say it's pretty specific. It definitely hits a majority of the photos posted on Instagram and Facebook. One of my concerns with the asset manager currently is it doesn't do Reels and TikToks, which are definitely the up-and-coming marketing medium, but it's kind of crazy cool. Like, we have it on the screen in the chamber office, so if anybody ever comes into the chamber, we have a television screen there, and that uses our data asset manager to showcase photos. And I'll go to an event on the weekend, come in on Monday morning, and I'll see a photo of a friend at that event. So if you don't want to be on there, please be sure to put your Instagram on private, and you won't, but it is pretty cool.
To check that out. So then kind of a follow-up to that, you mentioned you have staff that looks for community events. Is that something that could be tied into a service like that when people post events?
It is the constant push and pull with the powers that be at Facebook, where everybody says, hey, is there a way that we can connect this to our community calendar? And it's not in their best interest to allow that in any way, shape, or form through their system. So while I would say I hope one day, I don't ever think that will happen, unless it's people posting images of a calendar thing. But another cool thing the Data Asset Manager does is it looks at all of the photos and identifies what's in there via AI, and it can say, hey, this is a photo of a whale. So if it's I'm trying to think of a good example. If it's the prime whale watching season, I can go on, it's called CrowdRiff, I can go on and search orca whales breaching, and it'll show every photo that has an orca whale breaching in it that's been posted by anybody with a public Instagram account in the past year. So I can really kind of pinpoint down and get those images that we need without searching through a bunch of photos. It's really cool, saves a lot of time, kind of creepy.
Amazing. The website looks great, by the way. I've used it a couple times this last month, and I appreciate it. Thanks.
Dwayne?
No,
Anything?
I'm good, thank you.
Bruce?
Yeah, well, the eye candy you've given us is tremendous. You know, just leafing through it while I listen to you, it's really interesting. I do have a couple specific questions. Just maybe a really simple one to begin with is paid and organic media. I'm not exactly familiar with organic media.
So paid media is what we would say if, and we don't do it as much as we used to do, if somebody who was really famous was coming to town or coming to Alaska, we would say, hey, we'll give you $1,000 and if you post a bunch of photos in Seward. Now we're kind of acting as the middleman for that, where a lot of people with large followings on social media platforms will say, hey, I'm coming to Seward and want to promote X, Y, and Z, influencer type people. So we'll pass them along and they can maybe create contracts or arrangements with different operations in town. So that's something that used to happen a lot more at the early days of Instagram and influencers, where you would pay somebody to come and take a bunch of photos around Seward and post them and get interest in more people coming. Organic media is much better and more exciting in that people are seeing stories and content about Seward online, deciding to come here on their own and posting them themselves. So that's more of the CrowdRiff, Data Asset Manager, all of those great collections of content that we receive. That's all organic media. We're not paying anybody to do that. They're coming here on their own dime, posting photos, sharing it with their friends, and then we get to utilize the benefit.
Is that a common term then?
Yes.
Okay.
Organic media would be the term used for pretty much any.
Okay, so the next one might be hopefully relatively simple. I see on posting people rate things all the time. You alluded to it here a minute ago about looking at the ratings that businesses get. Is there a way, or who counters that? The individual, or does the chamber try to intercede if somebody gets a bad rating and maybe it's inappropriate or unjust?
We don't.
There's
get
nothing you can do
involved
about
in that. No, it's definitely on the business owner themselves to respond. If we get a in-person, or we do get some phone calls and things like that, or people will send letters to us complaining, and we will address that as much as we can.
You might be able to set the
Yeah.
record straight. Okay.
And we'll set that record
Okay.
straight, or try to alleviate it as much as possible. But like anybody in this open reviewing and Yelping world, we're also victims of that every once in a while, so.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah, it's fun.
I got a
We
couple.
only have one bad review, but.
Well, it
it's
happens.
amazing.
I think, you know, every business is sensitive to responses, so.
But we have in the past done workshops and things to help people navigate those types of situations.
Oh.
And it might be a cool one to do again for this year, like, hey, how do we respond to these? How do we keep calm under pressure but still respond in a way that's
I'll take that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't see anything in here in my quick browse through that opens our relation to the U.S. Forest Service and the Parks Service. They're big players here in town.
Yeah, so if you go to the Our Lands page in the visitor guide, we have a brief blurb on each one of those and the relationship, and then they're mentioned throughout, but there's no like, I would say Our Lands page is the closest one in the visitor guide that talks about that.
So most of this are for members or businesses. Most of what's in here are non-government. The only one I saw really that I noticed was Avtech. Like, I don't know if you call them ads or presentations.
Oh, yeah. So we've never done, I've never reached out to Kenai Fjords National Park or the Forest Service and asked them to buy an ad. Since I would say, and this is me patting myself on the back a little bit, that the whole visitor guide itself is an ad for Kenai Fjords National Park and the Forest Service. I would say as a whole, it definitely encapsulates that partnership and how strong of a correlation Seward has with the national park and the surrounding public lands.
Well, the Park Service office is here, still here in Seward, so I would hope that they display your brochure. And the Forest Service is now just in Moose Pass, so hopefully they do as well.
Yeah, and we work closely with them on some projects. We recently added a trails widget to our website so that we can have all of the distinct trails throughout the Seward and surrounding area. So we've been adding those on and connecting with Forest Service and Kenai Fjords to make sure that's done well. And we've worked with those entities on some projects, like the Seabird Festival and things like that. But yeah.
Come on, one more.
Okay.
This handout you gave me, or gave us, lists some places, but it's a short, it's much shorter than what's listed in here.
Those
for
are things that
places
are
to
currently
stay.
open.
Say it again?
Those are things that are currently
Oh,
open
okay.
right now.
This is wintertime places to stay. Got it, okay.
And with that caveat, we reach out to members to see if they're open, but we can't put you on that unless we know you're open.
Yep.
So that's my plug. If you are a chamber member and don't see yourself on one of those Seward area things to do lists, just let us know. We'll put you
Yeah,
on.
this is really good thing to have. Next one, I have two more. Next one is the bed tax at 4%. I assume the chamber works with council and the administration on setting that. And from what I can see, it's, at least in these cities that you named, much lower than anybody else. I'm not suggesting it should be a lot higher, but at a recent council meeting, I think there was a funding challenge for the chamber. If the chamber could have benefited by that additional money that had previously been available, would it justify a raising of the bed tax?
Let me think.
You don't have to answer today, we can talk about this some more.
No, I think that, I don't want to answer that right now.
Well, I think it's something to think about.
Yeah, 'cause
When we
it's
look at
always-
all the rates, we look at competitiveness between communities,
But
and then we look at needs.
But then on the flip side of that, I wouldn't want our community is a little off kilt with inside city limits and outside of city limits, so I wouldn't want inside city limit members and organizations like bed and breakfast to be burdened with that larger bed tax. And we also, like I said, we do a great job with the funding that we receive. So if there was an opportunity to increase the bed tax, I think that there's a higher likelihood or a higher need in infrastructure and building things for visitors and locals alike to experience based off of higher bed tax.
Directed funding,
funds.
yeah.
So while there was a funding discussion with the council this year, my big concern with that was changing the structure, because we usually received 50% and now we're receiving flat funding. Changing that structure without setting a plan forward and choosing an arbitrary number was something that scared me for the future of my organization. But in the reality of it is $300,000 is a great amount of money that we'll be able to do a lot of solid work with. And I don't necessarily, it's the most we've ever gotten, so grateful for that and excited to do the work that we can. In the future, if there was any big projects that we wanted to do on the Destination Marketing or Economic Development Fund, we would maybe come back and convene and discuss that. But the reality of it is, like, we're doing great, love working with the city, don't necessarily have any thoughts either way on the bed tax rate.
I'm not trying to put you in a bind, and I appreciate your diplomacy in answering it.
Stephen can chime in.
Well, one more thing.
Yeah.
It appears to me from what you said that your budget is actually, the contribution from the city is less than 50% of what your expenditures are. So if you have a $700,000 budget, and you're getting $300,000 from the city,
Yes.
you're using that $300,000 either as seed money or using it well to create a base. I think it's well spent. I'm not arguing that.
So I would say the one issue that we did face with funding was it's 2 years in arrears. So this year, 2022, we saw the bed tax funding at 50% from 2020. So this year we operated on a budget of about a third of what we usually do, but we still gave the same level of service that we would on a $300,000 year. So that, I would say, is probably the biggest issue, which is why flat funding is appealing. So if anything like that does ever happen again, we would still receive that amount because it was budgeted. So either way, we're happy.
I don't think the city had an objection to that plan. That was a sort of a win-win. It creates a firm base. I have one more thing, and this is not going to be answered today completely. Because I'm going to ask the chamber to bring back data on fish harvest. Our community member, Schaefer-Meyer, has raised an issue that I think deserves attention. I think we need to know where we're at with fish collection, fish data, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, I mean, and there's a downward trend, if we can do something early, we might have an advantage. If we let it go until it's, red, an explosion flag could be a problem. I don't know if the city's got any data.
Well, if I may, two things. One, back to the bed tax.
Yeah.
So Seward's at 4%. There's a lot of communities in the state that don't have a bed tax. I'll use Homer as an example. And I know they're actually, Jeanette and their city manager, Rob DeMichelle, have talked about that because our chamber's fortunate enough to be able to glean some of that bed tax funding and that's, Kat, tell me if I'm misspeaking, but it's actually been of a benefit to our chamber through the pandemic, where other entities like the Homer Chamber are more reliant on event specific, like their King Salmon tournament and that sort of thing. And so there's a lot of other communities that don't have a bed tax that are looking at implementing them. We also talked about that when the Public Recreation Center discussion came up, that possibly using some of the revenue from an increase of the bed tax. So it's something that council is going to, I would say, probably look at into the future. Regarding the I think the point that Daryl brought up regarding silver salmon specifically, for those who aren't aware, Fish and Game just put out their 2020, I think it's their 2023-2024 stocking plan, and it's open to public comment right now. So Fish and Game Sport Fish gets funding from, it's called the Dingell-Johnson Act. So if you go buy a fishing rod or, or if you go buy a fishing license, their sport fish program gets funding from that, helps supply their hatchery smolt production, where like the chamber has, and I'm not going to speak for CAB, but it's a significant amount of money that they've spent on smolts. The city has had some conversations internally about trying to put some more pressure on Fish and Game to plant more silver salmon in Seward, and that's something that we've had some conversations about as it applies to economic development, because it's really not the chamber's job to provide salmon. That's Fish and Game's job. That's the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So
Could be everybody's job.
yeah, and it's in all of our best interest to ensure the viability of those fisheries, both for a variety of reasons.
So would you say that Fish and Game report would be collecting that sort of data, return, I don't know if it's number of fish or poundage, or, I mean, clearly you have to have, if there's a problem, you identify it in some sort. The guys that go out and fish don't catch as many fish, or the fish are smaller. I hear both of those things are true. So where is that data?
Fish and Game, I mean, like the weir that they have up at, is it Second Lake?
Sure.
That's going to capture some of that data. I mean, for sockeye, the
For
weir.
escapement, for returning?
Yeah. And I'm not exactly sure how Sportfish or Comfish collects like salmon return data that doesn't pass through the weir, but I mean, we could definitely look into that more. Carl probably knows better than
Board
anyone.
Member Hughes knows.
You're talking about two different species of salmon.
Yeah.
That's sockeye, that's
Yeah.
commercial fish,
Yeah.
and they're doing great. The numbers have been increasing out here. It's our silvers that have been going down. And that's what, I love hearing the city's trying to put pressure on Fish and Game to say, hey, let's improve this, situation, because it is a huge economic boost and bonus. Let's put it this way, before the tourism industry started, there was fishing. And it was one of the principal things here. I did have one other thing, sort of a historical reference.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yep, sorry.
In 1997, I started promoting our business on the internet, and it took off. In 1999, both KFT and Major Marine Tours started doing the same thing. Obviously, they had more money because they brought in more people, and it even took off more. And slowly but surely, a lot more vendors got on, realized that the future was in social media and internet advertising. The chamber got on in like 2004 or 5 and has complimented us excellently. And both the vendors and the chamber have created this thing that just seems to be overwhelming. I mean, we can't find lodging for all the people that want to come to Seward. And I want to compliment you
Thank you.
from the ones way back then to now. Thank you for your
Oh,
efforts
thank you. That's
for the
great.
community of Seward.
I appreciate that. It's great to hear. It's fun.
Dwayne?
Hi, just a kind of a broad question, a comment first. It's beautiful print media. And just sort of following up on that, I mean, we've got a lot of information about, data scraping and the algorithmic stuff, and it's all digital. What is the future of the print media program look like? I mean, what's the
Yeah.
return on investment? Do we keep it going? What do you think?
So that's such a tough thing to think about. And it's definitely a conversation that has been brought up. Kodiak is actually not sending their visitor guides out to any other visitor centers in the state and are only utilizing online visitor guides off island, and then when people get to Kodiak, they can get a print one if they would like. We have a really unique subset of visitors to Alaska. A lot of them are in their golden bucket list years. We get a lot of calls each week asking for print materials in their hands, something to look at. So while I don't think we're close enough to completely diminishing that print media, I think we're getting closer and closer to creating a hybrid model where currently all of our visitor guides are put up online immediately after printing. You can see the 2023 one on issue.com/seward.com. But I think moving forward, we'll have those be more interactive and becoming a stronger presence online, kind of moving towards 50/50. And then eventually we will probably not make them anymore, but that's a decade or two down the line. They're still such a useful tool, and everybody else in the state does them. A lot of people across the country still do visitor guides, and yeah, it's one of those things that keeps me up at night though.
Yeah.
How many do I order? How many do we get? What do we do? Because each year we see a small decline in the amount that are handed out. So, thinking about it, but I don't know yet.
Yep. Okay, well, that's a good answer, thank you.
Yeah, and we also, like, our goal with the website is for it to be an online visitor guide. So as we get more and more well-rounded in our web presence online, I think our visitor guide becomes less of a useful tool for those who are online. So, we'll see.
I've got a couple of questions, comments. These pages are very helpful, specifically about dining though. It looks like you've got the real estate to do it. It would be really good if there was a line underneath each one of them that said when they were open.
Unfortunately, the business hours change so much that they become almost irrelevant the minute we print them.
Okay.
We've tried it in the past, and it's just not something that gleans success for the visitors or the people in town when they grab them.
So the alternative then would be, so some of these places, Woody's for example, always updates what's going on. Maybe if it just said underneath it, check their Facebook page for hours. And then for the ones that don't have Facebook and aren't writing Facebook, just put the phone number, call for hours. Because as a visitor, it's really frustrating to look at a list and go, oh, let's go to Lone Chicharon, and then you get there and it's Tuesday and they're closed.
So I will say, not in defense, because I do agree and understand that, a lot of visitors who are grabbing these are taking them from our office, and we have a full conversation with them about what is open the day that they're there.
Right.
And it's been something that we work on constantly trying to protect them. So while there isn't the have-all be-all solution to it, I think that there's still some room to grow there.
Yeah. I know I do a similar thing for my guests, and a lot of times I just check their Facebook page.
Yeah.
Let's see, so I had a couple of other questions here. You kind of skipped the staff page, and it's really small writing. It says 2 full-time staff, but then there's 3 bullets, and so that was a little confusing to me.
The third bullet says membership coordinator is not funded through the contract. So that's just clarifying which employees are paid for via the contract and the marketing destination.
I had a conversation with some staff the other day because I don't know how it's working for everybody else, but the emails that are coming from the chamber, they have old staff member names on them. And I was told that it was my problem and that I needed to delete that person from my contacts.
So while this is an operational discussion and not fully in the marketing realm, I can understand how that's frustrating. We do use individual accounts associated with the role so that people have a historical data and understanding of what's happened in the past.
Right.
So that we can have
So
continue those relationships. But a lot of times Google will automatically add a person to your account in your contacts, and then it'll continue showing up as that name unless you go in and change it.
Right.
So while I understand that is frustrating, it's all changed on our end. So I don't necessarily see a solution for that outside of changing it in your contact list.
Right, so the suggestion that I would make would be for the chamber not to personalize the director and the membership coordinator and the other titles, and leave them just so it says Director, Chamber of Commerce when the emails come, or Membership Coordinator. And then at the bottom in the email, the signature is whoever it was that's working.
Okay.
That way, you're not forcing out on your membership for each of us to try and sort out who's working at the chamber and who do I have to delete. I mean, I know it's kind of outside the realm of marketing, but you're involving your members in this thing that's sort of a lot of maintenance that just seems So anyway, I just throw that out there. Talk a little bit more about the event calendar, because are people who are chamber members the only ones who get their stuff on
No,
the?
it's part of our engagement with the marketing and economic development, so anyone can put their events on the calendar.
Okay, and how well has that been marketed? Are you getting people?
Yeah, we're getting a good handful of people uploading their own, and then we're uploading as many as aren't uploaded via third parties, and then we broadcast a lot of events through that, so we're seeing a lot of visits.
And are you including churches and those meetings, the Al-Anon and the AA meetings in that list?
No, because we want it to be, well, we're trying to keep it as not repetitive events. So like events that are, because the problem with the past event calendars is that they quickly became a list of things that happen each week. So we want this to be a special event calendars for things that aren't necessarily happening. So while I understand the church listings are a useful tool, we have that information on other parts of our page and other areas. So we want this to be a place where you can go see, oh, on January 21st, the Moose Pass Rendezvous happened. Not have to wade through all of the like weekly events. It's a special events calendar, not a, it's a special events calendar.
Okay.
But that being said, if somebody did upload it for a few weeks just to get the word out there, we would approve it, so.
Right. So the community's still lacking that overall tent calendar where there's everything happening in a certain day, whether it's a church event, an Al-Anon meeting, or, reading at the library, or something else.
I don't know, I guess, yeah. I wouldn't say it's missing that tenant because there are outlets where all of those information is available, but yeah.
The push a couple of years ago was to come up with a solution that would make it a one-stop shop. So on any given day,
Yeah.
you could look and see what's happening today, and it would have everything, not, oh, I gotta go check here, this is just special events. What's the status of luncheons? As a member, that's something that I really, really miss.
We do
COVID
the
killed it.
luncheons, we have a luncheon tomorrow.
Okay,
Yeah. But,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't know that, and I have a physical therapy.
They're on Thursdays now, or different days of the week?
We do, and also, once again, not part of the marketing discussion, so I don't want
So,
to dig into
sorry.
it too much, but we do them on Thursdays, but we switch each month, luncheons
Okay.
on Thursdays at noon, and then we do after fives the other month, so that people who can't take off during lunch can come as well. But once again, if that's an issue or a conversation you want to have, we can do that. And you can go to my office and we can make sure you're getting the newsletters and go from there, but not part of that marketing contract.
I'd like to thank Kat. You're on top of your game.
Thank you.
I think you're providing tremendous service for the community and your organization and members as well.
I appreciate it. I would owe it mostly to my team. They're awesome, and I'm really lucky to have them, and the support of the City of Seward and PACAB as well. So I appreciate all of your support throughout.
So in the email jargon, 2 thumbs up.
Anything else in the board? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
I appreciate it as well. I'll see you guys. I'm gonna leave these here in case anybody wants to grab them.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, now the next item on our agenda is formulate the 2023 PACAB work session meeting topics. And I have a little bit of a problem with this, only that we have not received any feedback from the chamber.
I make
Not
a
the
motion,
chamber,
I make
but
a
the
motion,
council.
I make a motion
Okay.
to approve, that's what we're doing here.
No, it's a discussion item.
No, don't make a motion.
Unless you wanted to make a motion to postpone it to the next meeting or work session or something like that.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we postpone until we get some direction from the council.
You're not gonna get it from the council.
Do I get a second for that motion, or we could discuss
There's a
it?
motion to postpone.
A motion to postpone this discussion item.
I'll second the motion and then speak on the motion.
All right.
Our priority list has been adjusted for us. We submitted a priority in the fall of 2022 that included a couple topics that are no longer on there. The topics that are currently on the table are a list of those items that were approved by council. Our task today is to fill in the blanks.
Right.
I don't think that that's a terribly difficult thing to do, but I still think this is an incomplete activity, and that this board should include topics that were in the realm of the things that we have typically done for the last number of years. And I think that we can act on that at a future meeting, but I think we should be prepared with those topics that we want to deal with, and include them in this list, pass it, and see if council accepts it.
All right, that's definitely one way to go about it.
But I will vote for postponement if that's what if it comes to a vote.
All right, do we have any other comments on this? Because we can dig into it. If people have suggestions for topics, we can go ahead and do what Bruce is suggesting and write them in. Or we can see if we get more
Just a note
guidance.
from the clerk here, I believe that I got a motion and a second to postpone.
Okay.
So
Oh, we need to
we'll
vote?
have to vote on that.
All right, but we're still having the discussion, I think. So, which way do you think we should go?
Well, just thinking about the special meetings, on one hand, I would think that they would, the topics that is, would come about organically, just following up on our business. If we have to address something a second time, if constituents, a member of the public has something that's perhaps appropriate for us to address. We can certainly plug in topics, but I guess that's just me thinking out loud. I don't know if we have all the topics to plug in.
We've kind of already addressed the next special topic, right? So there's information that we could use to start filling this out.
All right, well, let's vote on the motion, and then we'll see which way it goes. So we're voting on a motion to postpone this discussion to a later date. Correct?
Was there any specified date or just to be determined?
Discussion?
Motion was over here.
Just to
No special,
clarify.
just to the next, you know, I don't know how.
To the next regular meeting?
Yep.
Okay,
So voting to postpone this topic to the next regular meeting,
which would be March 1st.
March 1st. Jaffa,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Atwood,
Yes?
Hughes,
Yes.
and Paquette.
Yes.
Okay, so that topic will be postponed until the next regular meeting on March 1st.
Mick and, okay. Now, moving on to item number 3, ordinance 23.xxx, amending Seward City Code Chapter 2.30 Boards and Commission. This is the Title II work, I believe, that we were talking about. And I believe, yeah,
Is there a copy of the ordinance or?
yeah, it's in your packet,
Oh, I was trying to find it.
behind there.
Page 23.
Okay.
You've got it flipped
Oh,
on
yeah.
that side.
Okay, thank you.
There it is.
And the clerk would like to mention that this is just a discussion item. We're not making amendments or anything to the ordinance.
now
that
or
make sense?
when we reschedule it? It's a discussion item. We can't make recommendation changes?
Oh, you can make recommendations, but we're just not making any official
Right,
amendments to it
right,
this time.
right. Right, I think I need a motion and a second for us to postpone this to the February 15th meeting, so that admin can be here while we're having the discussion.
You mean the work
Can
session?
you clarify the date on that meeting?
Be the February 15th? Our next
Special.
regularly works,
Special meeting, yeah.
yeah, be our next regularly scheduled, we had been calling them work sessions, now we're gonna call them special meetings. In 2 weeks? But this is the 1st of February, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, we could go ahead and have a discussion right now, it's just that without,
Well, I just,
Stephen
Madam Chair,
here.
may I-
Yeah,
I was just trying to understand, I got the impression that the city is wanting us to come up with some sort of recommendation for a procedure for anyone resigning. If I'm wrong, please clarify it for me.
Well,
No,
I think it's way more than that. This ordinance, this is a rewrite of city code.
right,
This goes over your powers and the duties and things like that.
right. One of the problems in terms of a discussion, one of the problems I have with it is that it's a little confusing because it's in some places structured as if we were meeting for 12 months. Like, it says we have to give quarterly reports, except that for one whole quarter, we're not here. So I think there's a lot of sort of tweaking that needs to happen to this thing. In addition to the fact that the way it's written right now, it really, I think, limits us in a way that we've not been limited in the past.
I move that the discussion on this ordinance 2023-XXX for this board be brought to the February as a topic to a special session on February 18th.
15.
What? 15th? 15th.
Second.
We need to have any more discussion on this?
I
or-
would just like to discuss.
Yep, okay.
What's before us is a rewrite of the current ordinance. Some of it is just an English lesson, how things are positioned, how things are described. Some of it are fundamental changes. I think for our discussion on February 15th, the board members need to look at this very carefully and determine whether the language that's in this is what they expected of this board when they applied for it. Personally, I think there are significant changes, and those changes should be discussed for their merit.
I agree. Dwayne?
Yeah, I think it warrants some serious discussion, and I would, although a member of the audience, Schaefer Myers, already made some general comments, I'd be very curious to know a little bit more about his thoughts on scope, the things we should be doing, which makes me begin to think about this body in a different way, and even, you know, the name of this board. But I mean, that's a big topic. But
Right.
I'd be very interested in having some more conversation.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I basically woke up this morning thinking maybe we should look at the name again and bring that into the discussion. Any other
Call for the question.
comments? Yeah, let's call for the vote.
So we're voting on postponing this discussion item to February 15th special meeting.
Yes.
I saw in the calendar in here, it said that February 18th. which
So
I think
I-
that's why there was some confusion.
Today's the 1st, so it would have
It's
to
the
be.
15th.
It has
It would have to be the
to
15th, so
Yeah.
there's a typo here.
Okay, so ready to take a vote?
Yeah.
Hughes,
Yes.
Atwood,
Yes?
Smith,
Yes.
Jaffa,
Yes.
and Paquette.
Yes.
Okay, that has been postponed as well. And don't forget about the set of minutes that was
Correct.
taken off consent.
So the next item on our other new business would be item number 5, the minutes for the January 4th meeting. And I believe Board Member Jaffa had some concerns, so let's turn it over to Bruce.
I would like the minutes to reflect a brief, but a brief discussion where I tried to raise a topic with the city manager about the sewage lagoon and was ruled out of order.
Do we need a second? How do we deal with that?
Well, we're gonna vote on the minutes. I'm gonna ask for that to be approved and then.
Well, I can make these changes and bring them back for approval in the next meeting. That way you'll get to see what's written.
Yeah.
And then,
Yes,
that way you don't approve it ahead of time without seeing it.
Okay?
that was the only thing I had.
All right. And we don't need to vote on that? Okay.
That's it.
All right. That brings us to informational reports and items, and there are none. That brings us to citizen comments. I feel like someone should just bring you the microphone.
Is it turned on?
I don't think so.
Raising it up a little might be good, though.
It's on.
The batteries died.
Uh-oh.
So,
You can use this one.
you can hear me.
There you go, that'll work.
Close enough. Again, Daryl Schaefer-Meyer, resident of the community. I appreciate all that you discussed today and look forward to upcoming work sessions and regular meetings where you brought forth a lot of things to continue with today's agenda. One of the things that I did fail to, I wanted to mention was that I learned last Friday of the passing of Louis Van Cardino. And I was very sad to hear that. I can say it was not unexpected. I know because his health's been failing quite significantly. But I'm sure that the council is going to be doing some things to especially recognize Louis for all of his service to this community. It was substantial and probably unmatched in many regards in my experience in this town. Louis was my friend. We didn't always agree on things, but he was my friend. And I miss, when he left here, I miss those nearly weekly lunches that we had, sometimes more than once a week. And me being able to drive around Seward with Louis. And we didn't communicate a lot in those times, but we had a long history. And I don't know how many of you know how much he contributed, not just being chief of police here for many years, and then his role port director here for a long time, but the years that he spent working in Juneau on behalf of this community in only ways that Louis could actually do. He had a special way of working with certain types of legislators, both from his background of having lived in Nome and in Palmer, and some of the folks that did a lot in the legislature to help this town. We were the largest beneficiary of the money that came into the state coffers for capital budget of any community in the state of Alaska on a per capita basis. If you look at what we were able to do and reaping the benefits today as a community from all of that substantially. And that came about, I think, a large part to Louis' special efforts and skills. And having traveled with him on a number of those opportunities over the years, and he was special in that regard, and I don't know how this community can recognize that. I would hope there would be some kind of permanent naming or something where we don't forget him. And I hope the council will take the leadership on that. But if you board members have any suggestions in that regard, I know there'll be more information about all of this coming, but his role here was significant.
Thank you, Darrell.
Bridging many city managers and administrations and councils. In fact, he, as you may know, he served as mayor for a time here, on council and then as mayor. And so he cut a wide swath in this town. And I miss him. I don't have too much more to say. I look forward, like I said, to more discussion on the organization of PACAB, your duties and responsibilities. I commend to you, like I brought forward, I think, in the last meeting you had with the council, looking at what's on the website. I don't know who drafted that, who created that description of what PACAB does. It's not actually what's set forth in the code today, and it's not what has been recommended here in the suggested changes here. I would just caution that I hope that the board doesn't, whether it's renamed or whatever happens down the road, doesn't come just more of a harbor commission. I think it's served the community well with much broader roles and responsibilities than just dealing with port issues and harbor issues. They're important. I mean, Seward is obviously a port, and a significant port, and an important port, and I think it has a great future as things develop. Anyway, I've taken up my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Darrell. Anybody else? Okay. That brings us to board and administration comments.
Well, I'm saddened to hear about the loss of my friend also, Louis. I'm going to tell you a short story, and I really hope that the PACAB in some way or another can get behind honoring Louis. When I first came to town, I was a 25-year-old young man with a lot of ego and a lot of spunk. I had a car that I had sort of hopped up a little bit, and I bought land here, and then I started driving around one day around town checking it all out. Came down Blaine Avenue by the ballpark, decided I needed to introduce myself to the town, and I got on the throttle. You know what happened? I pulled around to the old gravel ball field, parked, because there was a whole bunch of young women out there playing softball, and I love baseball.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, I'm sitting here for about 5 minutes, and this gentleman comes out of the dugout, walks over to my vehicle. He says, "Hi, how you doing?" I said, "I'm doing fine." He says, "I'm Louis. I'm the police chief here." And he says, "We don't do things like that in this town." And it's okay. I respect that. That's how I met Louis. We became friends after that. He was always going to my daughter's shop every day, spending about a half an hour there visiting with her. That's Louis.
Anything else? All right. Dwayne?
Yes, again, more thanks to the audience member, Schaefer-Meyer. And also reminding us about Louis Bencardino. I think for the railroad's part, I know that we have a history of providing some information about former railroaders, and I know that the former port manager, now director of external affairs, work closely with Louis, and I would expect we'll have some information coming forward on just his history and at least his work at the railroad. Anyway, yes, I have my own memories as well. Anyway, and I also would like to thank the board for the work today, and that's all I have.
Pat?
Thank you. I guess I came to town after Louis had retired, but I did have the privilege of working on his electric tricycle. That was come to me with controller problems, and we would troubleshoot it down there at the shops. So I did get to know him a little bit, and part of the recognition is in Seward. There's definitely been a few key players in building this town. Mr. Schaefer-Meyer being one of them, sitting here, and the work that's been put in and through boards like this. I think that's a really good way to honor people. And I'd like to just say this: there's 20 pages of businesses that are involved in port and commerce. This board is here to support these activities. And they don't have to be specifically harbor or fish related. The housing stuff, the energy stuff, the stuff that makes this community a viable community is really important work. And somebody needs to kind of catch the loose ends. And I think that this board in particular is very well suited for that, bringing attention to these topics, airing the public opinion, and from the businesses. When we had the various larger businesses in town speak on the housing issue, I think that's one of the most impactful things I've seen this board do in a long time, and that sort of activity we need to really continue, and I think it's kind of all coming to a head soon. This town's getting very tight for the people that are trying to make it a home, and I think this board can help make this reality continue, so thank you.
Thank you. Bruce?
Well, as a brief overview, I went to a Department of Transportation seminar presentation in Anchorage recently. It was well attended. There were, I would say, close to 100 public employees presenting on a variety of DOT projects that included a lot in Anchorage, but clear down to our neck of the woods, including the 18 to 25 mile, the 24 to 36 mile through Moose Pass, the 45 to 60 mile through Cooper Landing. I don't know if I got those numbers all right, but they're all on the DOT website. They're all in the process of at some stage of process. The bridge, of course, across Resurrection River, Juneau Creek, it will be a tremendous project. The method of construction will be something that will make the papers all over the country. I would suggest that all of you pay strict attention to what's going on with DOT and advise where you can. I know I can't speak to any particular issue except that the Kenai Peninsula is our local, our next form of government. and can interact with state and federal government to a great extent. So we should look to that whenever we can.
And are they in public comment right now?
Some of them are.
Okay.
Some of them are just status of what's going to happen. I mean, for us, we know that the project 18 to 25 is dormant right now, but that'll be kicking up pretty soon and will impact everybody. Volunteerism. I would suggest everybody pay wherever attention they can to volunteerism. I am beating the bush for Moose Pass Volunteer Fire Department, but they're not alone. Anybody that can, in public service, that can offer, anybody that can offer their help in public service is welcome. The big one to pay attention to, in my mind, is the Girdwood Cloverleaf. They are in the process of taking comments. The $150 million Cloverleaf at Girdwood, which could be corrected with a stop and go light for about $10,000. And I don't think anybody would be, more than 5 minutes from getting to their boat to go fishing. But that's something to pay a lot of attention to. The Whittier Master Plan, that's going to have a big impact on us. That's in the process. I think the railroad knows about it, and certainly the harbor knows about it. This was the Cloverleaf thing for the Alyeska. The Long Trail. This is a really exciting project everybody needs to be aware of. This is a long-term trail from Seward that will go up past Anchorage, in many ways replicate the Iditarod Trail. It's happening. It needs support. I'm glad that the board found that we needed more time to think about the things that the administration brought to us. I think we need to understand the purpose and how this was developed so that we can make adequate contributions and counsel. That would probably include asking administration for some background. In closing, I started this meeting by talking to people about Louis Bengardino, not knowing that he'd passed. Like many of us, he was a friend. I think I see friends passing more often than I wish they were, but Louis was a stand-up guy. A 21-gun salute would be cool. And I know that he was comforted in his senior years by those who cared and loved for him, and that's comforting. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, Louis' passing leaves a big hole, even though he's been gone from the community for a while. I know when I was working I worked at the phone company, and then I worked at Eagle Eye Photo, and both of those places he would come in and visit with me. So he was quite a character. I want to thank everybody who came. I want to thank Kat for indulging some of my conversations that were outside of the marketing side of the chamber. I'm glad that we've postponed these two discussion items. I did reach out to the mayor and asked for some feedback on topics for us to be working on, and this will give maybe council some time to maybe have a work session or something, or a discussion item where they could come up with some ideas. I remain concerned that we are a community, a coastal community, without a climate action plan. We worked on it for a while, and it's really, to put a plan together is something that's going to require a lot of work and expertise outside of the expertise on this board. So one of the things I'm going to suggest when we get to this discussion is that maybe we can involve Seward, sustainable Seward, as a resource. But one of the things that really concerns me about climate change is the fact that the ocean is definitely rising. These last high tides that we had out on Lowell Point, you could see where the ocean actually came up over the berm in the state park and worked its way into the park itself. So if that's happening there, I'm just curious, is Seward rip-wrapped enough all the way around? Are there places where we have exposure that we need to be thinking about? So that's going to be one of the things that I bring up when we get to the topics, meeting topics. So, I think with that being said, if we look at the schedule, we've got the next couple of meetings worked out, so we're good, and we can fill in the rest of it at that work session. Where did that calendar go? All right. I guess I don't need to see that right now. Actually want to see it before we suspend this meeting, though. 20? 20? Oh, no wonder. Okay. There we go. Thank you, Ben. So the 15th, we're going to dig into the Title II code change. And then I'm hopeful that by the first meeting, we can do, in addition to the development plan, our work session topics, our meeting topics for the alternate weeks. And if you have any other ideas in the meantime, I would submit them to the clerk for getting them on a calendar. And with that, I will adjourn. Oh, sorry, Norm, I'm sorry. Yes, staff comments,
So
administration.
the clerk's back, I'm pretty sure she has something going
Okay.
for Louis, I would think.
Oh, Louis Van Cardino, yes, we're doing a in memoriam proclamation, well, not a proclamation, but in memoriam on February 13th.
Okay, wonderful.
February 15th,
13th.
13th.
Yeah,
So I wanted to throw that
At
out.
a
I know
council
she
meeting?
was all over it, so.
That'll be at a council meeting?
yes, at the council meeting.
Wonderful.
And just, we were talking about stories about Louis. Remember Louis was playing for the Swinging Grannies way back when he wore that outfit. You ever seen that picture? It's really awesome. So I want to touch on a few things. You mentioned Long Trail, the funding was cut out of the budget. We were in Juneau with city managers and council members a few weeks ago, and there's a lot of good things happening in Seward. One of the things, the budget got cut, but some of the things we're talking about bringing the ferry back. We did talk about the airport. Well, we also talked about the Department of Correction, trying to get them to pay for everything instead of the city of Seward is. So we did a lot of good work there, I think. It was some great meetings with the legislature. I know they're just starting up. I'm going back here in a couple of weeks to do some more harbor stuff, and push harbor stuff, and then I want to see a DOT commissioner again, so I'm going to be bringing the airport stuff back up and bringing that resolution that hopefully council passes here at the next meeting. Bring that and drop that off all to all of our, legislatures in Juneau. So there was a lot of good things that happened in Juneau, and with the possibility of Seward being a secondary port for tow, that could be huge. It's going to be huge. So it's a lot of good things happening. We're a ways away yet for some things, but I think keep pushing the funding. There's a lot of money there, they keep saying, but not sure how they're going to give it out yet. So I think that's where they're at. We've been pushing to keep the $5 million into the budget for the railroad dock to get things keep moving there. So that was pulled, but I think hopefully we can get that put back in. All in all, I think it was a good trip, and I think, like you said, you go there, you meet these folks, and some people have a way of talking, of getting things, pushed for Seward, and once you go in to meet a legislator, you know right away whether they care or they don't care. You can tell their enthusiasm, and it's really amazing how that is now. Next week's probably be totally different from the first week we had, because everybody was everywhere, nobody knew where the office was, so. But we have great lobbyists. I just want to touch on that, because they had us lined up. The governor couldn't meet us. We tried to get in with the governor. We did get in with the assistant governor, so. Anyways, yeah, that's all I got, thanks.
Anything else? Okay, I'll adjourn at 1:45.